report says the FBI still has not released the memo from the Richmond office that appeared to target Catholics who attend the traditional Latin Mass. Writing for FoxNews.com, Andrea Picciotti-Bayer says in part, quote, that even a field office of the FBI entertained religious profiling. That should shock the conscious. After all, racial and religious profiling has been shown not just to be ineffective, but also erodes trust, both in the police and governmental authorities. And we go now to Andrea Picciotti-Bayer, EWTN News Legal Analyst. Andrea, always so good to be with you. So what reasons did the FBI Director Christopher Wray give for not releasing the document? I mean, despite a Freedom of Information Act requesting it, is that even legal to do?
You know, there are, Tracy, thanks first for having me on. It's always great to be with you. But there are some exceptions to FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, and there is an exception for law enforcement agencies when there's active investigation and other things that are of the delicate sort. And we'll find out as Catholic Vote and Judicial Watch pursue their FOIA request, whether that exemption really is valid, a valid reason to keep it from that FOIA request. But there was some good news that the committee, the House Judiciary Committee's subpoena of the FBI for these documents was completed. The documents were handed over to Representative Jim Jordan and his committee. There was a little bit of a caveat, and there was a request from the FBI to keep that confidential, not to share with the public. We'll see whether that request is legitimate or not. But I think that this is another important step in this pursuit to make sure that, as you mentioned before, religious profiling isn't part of our federal law enforcement toolbox.
Yeah, and remind us again, Andrea, what caused the Richmond field office of the FBI to target the faithful, those who do attend the traditional Latin Mass?
Tracy, it's really interesting. In the memo itself, the research that they were relying on were some pretty discredited groups. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which we know has been discredited both because of their founder's poor treatment of his own staff, but also for their proclivity to list everyone under the sun as a hate group, including great religious freedom groups like the Alliance Defending Freedom. So the fact that the federal law enforcement agency down in Richmond was relying on the designation by the Southern Poverty Law Center of traditional Latin Mass goers as being somehow radical or threatening is really troublesome. I think that we should all ask and demand of our law enforcement agency to do their own investigatory work and to not rely on such discredited groups.
Yeah, and we know, only really about this particular memo from the Richmond field office, but is there concern that this may be happening elsewhere? We just don't know about it?
We don't know what we don't know. But I do think that it was important that FBI Director Wray did say that denounced the memo when it became public, pulled it, and that in general, we need to hear from all levels of government rejecting this approach to investigation and federal law enforcement in general. I'd particularly like to hear from the president.
Yeah. For sure. We have about a minute or left, Andrea, but I'm curious, what else is on your radar right now? What are you following?
I think that we should be paying attention to Jim Jordan's committee hearings. He has tomorrow a committee hearing related to gender identity and the due process rights of children and their parents when there's a pursuit in whether it be in schools or in other settings. I think that's something that all Catholics and all Catholic families should be alert to. And it's something that I think is going to be getting through our courts very soon and hopefully reach the Supreme Court quickly to reinforce the rights of parents and to reinforce their due process rights so that decisions affecting their children aren't done behind their backs.
Well, Andrea, we have to leave it right there, but always so good to be with you. We appreciate your insights.